Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hey Pete, welcome back. Films and Stuff. How are you today?
I am great, Ethan. How are you?
Everything is great. It is another week, another episode of Stream or Skip. You want to give a rundown on the rules?
Absolutely. Ethan has provided a list to me of TV series that he'd like me to watch. I have provided him a list of TV series I'd like him to watch. Could be movies, but generally speaking, we stick to TV. And the idea is that they're shows that we haven't watched before and probably wouldn't watch ourselves.
Right.
And we watch at least 2 episodes. We give you a quick fire review, and then we decide if it's a show that we want to continue investing our time in or not.
Mm-hmm. And in 2022, do you recall how many shows we reviewed in 2022 each? I think we did about 30, right?
Yeah, more than 25, less than 30, something like that. Yeah, for about half a year we did that.
Yeah, and we had, I think, a pretty good track record where even though we had a few duds, we also found some gems and some stuff that we both just raved about.
Yeah.
However, 2023 seems to be off to a little bit of a slow start. What do you think?
You're not wrong.
I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
You want to go first? You had something on Hulu. You want to break it down for us?
I did. So we talked about this very, very briefly. Based on the title, I watched Monarch. And based on the title, you mentioned something about music last week. And I said, well, that's got to be ridiculous. It's got to be about the royal family, right? Or a royal family. It only makes sense.
Or bird watchers for butterflies.
Or maybe. Let me tell you right now, I have egg on my face because you were 100% right and I was 1,000% wrong. I couldn't possibly have been more incorrect about this.
Yeah.
So, for those who don't know, Monarch is a name of a country music label in this TV series, and it's about a country music family called the Romans, and effectively everyone in the family is a country music star. So, the mother played very ably by Susan Sarandon.
Oh, I'm in love already.
Yeah, so she plays this massively popular, super successful, aging country music singer.
Okay.
And she's basically retiring because she's not well. And what happens is she is very much concerned with her family legacy. She's got 2 daughters. She's got a son. The son manages he's the CEO of their music label called Monarch Records. Her husband sings with her. He's also a guitarist and singer. One daughter, the younger daughter, wants to be the next head of the family, and she wants to kind of take over as the star of the family. And the other daughter doesn't want anything to do with the family, but kind of does want to be a part of the family. She's not exactly 100%, but she's also a singer. And if you are getting vibes of Succession, you are 100% absolutely right. This is exactly Succession and Yellowstone, except instead of now Montana in New York or New York in Montana, this is Montana and New York in the South somewhere. I can't remember. Maybe Georgia. I can't remember.
There's another show. Oh, what's that show? And it's called Empire, right? For the families.
It is. I know exactly what you're talking about. I haven't seen the show. It didn't, premise-wise, didn't click to me at the time, but maybe it will now. But that's virtually the same. I believe it to be the same premise.
Yeah.
All the kids are vying for mom's love, affection, and success, similar to what we see in Succession with the father. Yeah. There's tons of infidelity. There's a lack of trust in family. There's snide comments. But without any of the, let's call it polish that we've seen in Succession. Certainly none of the humor that we saw in Succession. And
Oh,
certainly
really?
none of the... It's nowhere near as cutthroat as Yellowstone. So it looks, for example, right now, it looks like it's going to be sister versus sister for the crown of the Monarch family.
Okay.
Look, I think this is...
Is there anyone else I know in this show?
Not that I've recognized in the first 2 episodes that I've seen. Now, from what I understand, there are lots of guest stars because this is a new genre of drama. I think this is like not just family drama, but this is like family high drama, where we have ultra wealthy, ultra successful families, and we get to see the skeletons in their closets. So we saw that with Succession. We saw that with Yellowstone. I think this is exactly the same thing.
Okay.
Just a different setting.
Okay.
So
Nashville. It's Nashville,
Nashville,
right?
There you go. Tennessee, right? So the idea is that you are getting to see the dirty laundry of a very successful music empire, which is exactly what we've seen. We saw the very dirty laundry of a very successful rancher and landowner. We've seen the dirty laundry of a very successful media mogul. So that's what I mean by that genre. It's it's obviously a drama, but I feel like this is a subset that we're starting to see because there's a lot of... It's a little bit of Schadenfreude to watch this, to see super powerful families go through the heartaches that, normally we wouldn't necessarily associate with super powerful families or super wealthy families.
Is there a lot of singing? Like, is this more of a musical or there's no musical. Takes like a back
It's not a musical in any way, shape, or form. Of course, you do see some concerts, you do hear some singing, but that's kind of it. It's kind of just a backdrop. Kind of like how we see some cowboying in Montana. I keep calling it Montana, but in Yellowstone.
Yeah.
But it's not. The premise is about that, but we don't see a lot of it.
Since it's on Hulu, is there nudity, vulgarity, swearing? Where does it fall on that?
Not much. Not much of that.
Okay.
Nothing that stuck out to me. Certainly nothing that was shocking to me. No nudity, no nothing like that.
Yeah.
Look, for me, it's the way I look at it is this is a skip for me, but that's because this specific industry / subgenre, and maybe more importantly, subculture, i.e. the country music subculture, doesn't do it for me. It's not appealing. There's something visceral and appealing about being a cowboy, right? And I think, it's because, when you're kids, everyone wants to be a police officer or a firefighter or a cowboy or, a doctor or whatever it is, right? And when I don't think that has that appeal for me. And then whereas in shows like Succession or Industry, where we've worked in banks before, we've worked in the finance industry. So we that has that kind of personal appeal because we can relate to it. We understand it. In this case, it does, other than the family drama, none of it is appealing to me. And because the country music thing is like the veneer on top of it, it's not for me.
Yeah, I can see that. I recall, when you got this draw last week, I kind of recalled seeing this on Hulu. It stuck with me, probably only because of Susan Sarandon, and probably also because it's so much like Empire, Succession, and Yellowstone, where it just kind of appeared to me, and I don't say this negatively, but it was kind of like a cookie cutter where it took basically the same stuff.
Yeah.
But like a Mad Libs book, it said, okay, but that's going to be in the country Western music sector, and therefore it has to be based in Nashville.
Yeah. Yeah. If the way I looked at it is exactly the cookie cutter argument. I thought of it as, you're baking 2 different kinds of cookies. One's a chocolate cookie, one's a vanilla cookie. They're both effectively the same. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're both effectively the same. So you just have to really, in this case,
Yeah.
like, if you want to call Monarch chocolate, you really
Yeah.
have to like the flavor of chocolate. Otherwise, you're not going to go with it, or you're going to have to really like the flavor of vanilla. That's what
Yeah.
it is. And for me,
Mhm.
I don't. It has very limited appeal, and
Yeah.
because it is such a cookie cutter, or at least at this stage, seems like such a cookie cutter take on things that we've seen in the past, I'm not into it.
I would only offer my humble suggestion that when there is a show like this that's intended to be around music, I don't know why they don't take someone from like America's Got Talent or The Voice or something and put them in a role and try to build a little bit of a song catalog around them during the show as well.
Yeah,
Because I think one of the hard parts about a show like this is that you can't generally you can't take someone else's music, and it's hard to come up with original music that's kind of good, and you can have actors or actresses kind of singing. For me, I think that if they could introduce an element where there's actually some pretty good songs, that would maybe distinguish it a little bit from some of the other stuff out there.
yeah, and it's interesting you say that because in the last season of Yellowstone, they actually got country music stars. So you've got
Oh,
actual
yeah.
singers who are there in the road, and they're doing
Yeah.
bit parts, of course. They're not the
Yeah.
main actors, but they're genuine singers. They're genuine stars in
Mm.
that subgenre. So it's kind of like an Easter egg for people who, it's thematically appropriate for
Yeah.
Yellowstone, and B, for people who are fans of that genre, it's like an added bonus. Like it's a nice callback. Oh, I know her. She's a really good singer. I've actually heard her albums before, and now she's got a bit
Mm.
part on Yellowstone. I think that's great. And I
Yeah.
think you're absolutely right. They could try, you could definitely do that. And in Monarch's defense, maybe they have, right? I only saw 2 episodes. I've decided it's not for me going forward, but who knows? Maybe they've got more. Maybe the songs are written by, real country stars. I have no idea.
I mean, you gave it a good try, but I have to say it's not compelling me that I'm gonna, you know, watch any episodes of Monarch either. Although I do love Susan Sarandon, and I have to say, I'm kind of into the premise. Like, I could see it being good. It's soap opera-y,
Yeah.
but I mean, it doesn't seem like it's interesting enough to get me to watch that in place of some of the other stuff I've got on my plate.
Yeah, it's weird because she also plays like a relative hard ass.
Mm.
And I'm not saying Susan Sarandon isn't a hard ass. She is, but it's just coupled with the fact that she's playing as like this quote unquote bad guy. Not obviously a bad guy, but someone who comes off as not so nice. And
Yeah.
then there seems to be
That's such
something a
a
little
trope,
off
right?
about it.
That's such a trope is the hard charging mother or father, matriarch or patriarch, that drives so hard and is so concerned about their legacy, and all the kids are just trying to earn their affection, right? I mean, that just seems like it's such a tropey thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
So that's where I stand on Monarch. So hats off to you for calling it, but it caught me completely out of left field. I was super shocked when I saw the first like 30 seconds. I was like, "Oh, have I got the wrong show
ah,
here?" But no, no. So there we go.
well, that's something a little bit different for you. And I also had something a little bit different, which means our system is working. I had a Netflix show called The Mole,
Yeah.
and it's a reality game show. Is
Our
that right?
first. Yeah.
Our first, and maybe the first on Netflix. So if you've seen Survivor,
Mm-hmm.
which everyone in the world has, or heard of it, I assume, this is very much like Survivor. The Everyone's out in the wilderness. They're in Australia. It's about, surviving a lot of physical challenges. Last person left, wins a whole pot of money. Everyone has to walk that fine line between competing with people, but at the same time, there's teamwork involved, a lot of physical challenges. The wrinkle, and I would say, I'm sure there's some people that have watched Survivor for every year for the last, I don't even know, 20 or 25 years. And they can really dive into the strategic nuances better than me. For me, the one distinction is that the mole is just like it sounds. There's one person in the cast, one contestant who is employed by the show, and they are the mole. So their job is to basically sabotage things for everybody else and start to manipulate everybody else.
I love it.
And try to get everybody to be thinking that they can't trust the other person, even though there's, a lot of teamwork and coordination involved. It's clever wrinkle, I have to say. So I did a little bit of cheating. I watched the first 2 episodes, and then I skipped to the last episode to find out who won and who was the mole. And the first 2 episodes, I mean, it's okay. I think this needs to be watched in a group. Like, for me, the quintessential watching would be, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whomever, and this would be their thing that they watch together, and they have intense discussions about who is the mole and who they want to win and who they don't support and blah, 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 right?
Right.
Watching it by myself, it was a little bit dry, but I kind of got into like some of it. I mean, but it's a lot of what you've seen before, right? There's a lot of physical challenges. There's a lot of teamwork. It's interspersed with, kind of like after the fact interviews. There's a lot of time lapse to manufactured drama that may never have been there, right? So if they're looking for a suitcase hidden under a tree, they've got the camera angles, they show the people looking, they've got a clock counting down in the corner. It's manufactured drama and may not have been so dramatic, in real life. So I watched the first 2 episodes, got a sense of not all the characters, because obviously every episode they focus on some more than others, but I got a sense of who the characters are, who I kind of like, who I found very annoying. And, they interview everybody, especially the first episode. It's all interviews and, I'm a pilot, I'm going to win because, or I'm a lawyer, I'm going to win because.
Of course.
Everyone pleads kind of their case why they've got this, skill that's going to allow them to outshine everybody. Then I skipped to the last episode, saw who won it, saw who was the mole. And I mean, it was, I'm happy that I watched the end. I wasn't really dying to know the outcome after the first 2 episodes, but I'm happy that I saw a conclusion. And I don't feel that I missed anything. I don't know how many episodes I missed. Let's say 7. I don't feel like I missed anything not seeing those 7 episodes. I'll say this. The person who won, it was down to 3 people. There were 3 people left, and you knew one of them was the mole. And then they all kind of like had their guess in terms of who was the mole. And interestingly, they each chose a different person, right? So whoever guessed the mole correctly would win, and they each guessed someone else. Obviously, the mole, doesn't matter who the mole chose because that's intentional. The person who won was this, can I say it or should I not say it?
I'm probably not going to watch it, but go. So
I'm
spoiler alert.
I'm not going to spoil it.
Oh, okay, fine.
The person who won, I kind of saw them as like, at least for my first 2 episodes, at least they would have been on a list of people that I would have considered capable of winning. You know, there were some people that I probably would have said, no way, this person, no way, this person. At least the person who won for me was kind of on the short list. I can't say I predicted they would win, but I didn't absolutely write them off. The person who was the mole, I should say, of the three, one of them I thought was highly likely to be the mole. So I feel that at least I kind of got it down to three based on the first episode or the first two episodes. And if you watch the first two episodes, you'll probably know what I mean. The person who ultimately was the mole, to be honest, I was very neutral about that person. They weren't featured prominently in the first two episodes that I watched. So I think I really didn't have a chance to like qualify them or disqualify them as a potential mole. But I wasn't like shocked or not shocked. So having watched this, we have our rating system, Pete. We gotta stick to the rating system.
Yeah.
I give this a skip. Sorry, the mole. Sorry, Netflix. Nice try. I bet a lot of people are going to watch this. And I can see some people really loving it. And I think that the wrinkle that you've added to it is pretty good. But there's honestly nothing really compelling about this. It's watch it and forget it. If you just came home from the office, you had a terrible day, and you just want to take your mind off of something, okay, I can see watching an episode of this. But in terms of making you more creative, teaching you anything, shock, surprise, steaminess, I mean, there's really nothing, to be honest. It's just a bunch of interviews and people, you know, honking their own horn and a bunch of physical challenges that are edited to be more dramatic than they maybe were. It's a skip for me, but I have to say there's at least some redeeming qualities to the show. And if someone said, hey, this is a mooch or I must subscribe, I wouldn't fight them to the death. I would respectfully disagree, and that would be the end of it for me.
Yeah, but I think you also raised a really good point. You know, shows like this, generally speaking, especially, you know, these reality TV-esque, let's say, game shows, as it were, I think they're definitely better watched with someone, right? Or with a group. I mean, as much as I'm loath to admit it, I remember watching the first series of The Apprentice in the US, and it was a weekly thing for us to get together. We'd get a bunch of takeout food, sit together, all of us in somebody's apartment, and laugh over how ridiculous the contestants were being, and, you know, waiting for the classic, you're fired, right? So it's, and looking back at it now, it's not that the show was any particularly good, and any person with half a brain would be able to suss out who's getting fired within 10 minutes of meeting these people. Right. But the concept of this game show-esque, you know, jump through hoops and hurdles to figure out who's actually competent, I think that was quite fun. So, but again, only because we could sit there, we would laugh, we would point out the obvious fallacies in somebody's argument, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm with you. Premise-wise, it sounds fun, but like, I don't think I would ever sit down and, you know, on a random Thursday afternoon or evening, sit there and be like, I'm bored, I'm going to watch this on my own. No way, no how.
Yeah. I think, you know, I don't think that Netflix has it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, Amazon has the watch party.
Yes.
This would be a really good candidate for the watch party.
Yeah.
This would be something, even, I have to say, it's almost would be appropriate for like long distance relationships or kind of like families. Like I could almost see my family, like no one really loves the show, but as you mentioned, like with your friends, it's kind of like our family thing. And we've decided every Sunday night, we're going to kind of watch an episode through watch party, chat with each other, make crazy predictions and so forth. I can see that being very popular. And if Netflix had Watch Party or something similar, I could see this being a very strong candidate to be popular through that.
Well, you heard it here first. Netflix. Ted Sarandis. I can't remember his surname, but Ted, you heard it here. Ethan suggesting you steal Bezos's Watch Party idea, and I think it's a good idea, actually.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful way to do it because, here's the problem with Netflix right now. They're on a cost-cutting spree at the moment, and they are cutting shows left, right, and center after one season, even shows that are... I saw 1899. I enjoyed it. I was looking forward to seeing where it goes. And then they cut it after one season. And I think it's because they've got such ridiculously high standards for themselves as to what should stay on as a renewal and what shouldn't.
Yeah. And the mole I feel is going to be on there. I mean, this is exactly the type of show that gets renewed almost endlessly. Because the cost is
next to nothing, right?
Low,
I feel like Survivor, hasn't that been going on for 40 years? Yeah. Whatever it's been.
I mean, the cost is, I'm sure, I'm not even going to guess how much it is, but you've got obviously, one commentator or host, right?
Yeah.
Everyone else is there for free. You've just basically got to buy them a bunch of tickets. Of course, there's, a film crew and a sound crew and an editing crew. And then you basically just put a bunch of, I'm being facetious, but you just basically put a bunch of red suitcases all over the forest, right?
Yeah.
And make up a few things that they have to jump over or shimmy under in order to get them, and you've got the show. So yeah, in terms of cost effectiveness, you make that whole season for what it probably costs to make one episode of a different show. You can run that thing forever, right?
Yeah.
It may not be winning any Academy Awards. It may not be winning films and stuff, whatever our award is, but someone will watch it, and by virtue of a low cost base, it will make some amount of money.
Yeah, I agree. And look, the more I think about it, the more I love your Watch Party idea, because what it does is it also forces people who are subscribers to get in on the action, or if you're not a subscriber, hey, all of a sudden everyone's watching, this terrible reality TV series. And the timing is actually quite good because on premise, this sounds like that this very popular game Among Us, right? Where everyone's working towards a task, but one person is the interloper who's trying to sabotage everyone. It's a very common video game trope at the moment. And I think that what you do is, by having a game show about that, you also can pick up a video game audience.
Yeah, you're right. So that's what we've got for this week's Stream or Skip. Unfortunately, maybe we should say fortunately. I mean, we've encouraged our listeners that they do not have to waste their time with two shows. But for you and me, we had a week of pushing through some non-compelling streaming shows.
Right.
Do you think we will turn this around for week 3?
I'm always optimistic. I think it'll be a better chance for you, considering, spoiler alert, I've already chosen what we're watching for next week. But you've got an Apple TV series called Shining Girls.
Oh, no, dude.
Look, I don't either, but I give it a little bit of benefit of doubt for two reasons. One, it's on Apple TV, and generally speaking, they're doing a pretty decent job. And two, even though I don't know anything of the show, it's starring Elizabeth Moss.
Oh, really? I mean, if you would ask me what I think of the show, like what pops into my head, I would guess it's something like Gilmore Girls, one of these kind of coming of age teen, maybe not older than teenagers, college students, and they blah blah blah, heartache and pain and joy and tears and all this stuff. Elizabeth Moss is the GOAT, but still her involvement makes me think it's somehow more of that and not necessarily what else could it be? I don't know.
Maybe, but it's not where my mind went, only because I saw that it was an Apple TV program as well.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
You never know. You never know. Look, fingers crossed. And yeah. I've got Netflix's Inside Man, not to be confused with Inside Man starring Clive Owen, the movie from like 2000, I don't know, 4 or 5 or 9, which was a wonderful heist movie. One of the best.
Yeah.
So I don't know anything about this, but if it's...
Again, from context.
Yeah. Maybe...
Right.
Maybe like about an informant, maybe about someone in jail, something like that. I don't know.
I agree. I mean, most likely this is not a comedy.
No, most likely it's not. Because it's also Netflix, and Netflix isn't exactly known for its own sitcoms.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's watch our assignments this week. And let's see if we can turn around what's been so far in January, 2 weeks of meh assignments. Let's try to find our gem, diamond in the rough, right?
Indeed, that's the hope.
Pete, thank you. Listeners, thank you. Pete, when are we going to get some comments and some recommendations from our listening base?
I don't know, for that, right? But if you are watching this on YouTube, please like us, please subscribe, please leave a comment. All of these little things help us. They don't take much time from you. We would love to hear from you. Give us a list of shows that you want us to go through, or, shows, you don't have time to go through, but you think you'd want to know if it's worth watching or not. Drop us a line. You can tweet at us at F&S Podcast, or you can drop us a line on Instagram at Films and Stuff Podcast, or email us aloha at filmsandstuffpodcast.com.
We are big on the tweets. We are big on comments. Don't let us down. Thank you for listening.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ethan.
All right. Thanks, Pete. Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.